Hello and welcome to today's episode of Zach Thinks Your podcast. Today I have Elijah with me. I this is I'm just doing this for the first time. Is having like a little telling you a little bit about the guests before they come on. Elijah, I was really excited to have because of the level of emotions that he's helped me be able to identify as I've been working on becoming a connection codes coach. He's already one. He was one of the trainers in the program that Alyssa and I went through as we are both working on building our coaching practices. And wanted to have him on because I felt really refreshed hearing him talk in the way that he talks, especially about emotions and about a lot of intimate things. If you liked this, if you want to continue seeing awesome people come on or you want the guests to keep getting better, do me a favor, like this podcast or follow it if you're on Spotify or if you're on Apple Music. Helps me grow as a content creator, helps me grow and continue to improve the conversations that we're having with people. So without further ado, let's jump on in. Hello and welcome to the Zach Thinks Your podcast. Today's episode, I have with me Elijah. Elijah, we met a couple months ago. We've been doing the Connection Codes coaches training, me and Alyssa, and you've been one of the trainers. You've been someone you volunteered to help me and Alyssa out with one or two things, and I've just been really impressed with my experience with you and a lot of the learning that we've been doing. And so I wanted to put you in front of the people that listen to me here, because I think if I'm learning things from you, I'm sure they could be getting value out of that too. Awesome. So Elijah, give me a quick, just to kind of introduce yourself. What would you say your background is in like this connection code stuff? How has this shown up in your life and changed both your practice and I know a lot of the things in and around your life?
Ooh, yeah. So I've been like a health and fitness coach, primarily focusing on like nutrition coaching, but then, personal training for about 10 years or so. And about 5 years ago, I noticed obviously around nutrition, everybody's got a lot of emotions around nutrition, and like a lot of that factors into their food choices and habits and behaviors. And so, and then I had my own personal struggle with like mental health, mental fitness. And so I just started going down the road about 5 years ago. Like, I got to figure some of this stuff out. My mind just wasn't like doing well, if I'm honest. And so then I found this book and these tools, and I just started integrating them, which was connection codes. I started integrating them into my own personal life and my relationships with my wife and my kids. But then I started integrating it with my clients, and the shift that I saw so much faster in not just their mental health, but how it impacted their physical health, like their nutrition practices and behaviors, it just blew my mind. And I was like, I think I want to start shifting my practice more towards helping people with their mental fitness, their mental health, and emotional health. And that was about 3.5 years ago that I started really shifting my practice. And then this last year, I think I just finished my last technically solo nutrition client where that's all they were working on about 2 months ago. And now all of my clients, we really just focus on mental and emotional health. And I find that it just impacts everything else in their life. So, whether they had like negative coping mechanisms, whether that's food or alcohol, pornography, whatever it is, once we addressed kind of the emotional health that was driving those negative behavior patterns, I've seen such a huge shift. So not only has it been a shift in my life, but I've watched my clients come alive and kind of become the people that they knew they were, but just somehow had these blocks. And yeah, it's just been really amazing. So I just went all in. I'm like, let's just move this way. And it's been really fun to watch. So that's kind of the journey for me getting to this point. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like I've had somewhat of a similar journey so far. Much shorter lifespan of like the journey in terms of coaching, because I've only been coaching for about a year and a half now. But it starts with fair play, and what I've been learning from connection codes here is that so much of what I've been coaching is logistical, is talking about like what are the logistics around dishes. But what I
Totally.
haven't realized, so I've been integrating the emotion wheel probably with my clients for 9 months or so, but haven't really fully been diving into it. And I've been noticing just the differences in my own ability to
Hmm.
articulate my emotions. I don't know how well I've been regulating them myself, but I've been articulating them really well.
Right. Yeah.
And the other night when you were working with me and Alyssa, you were helping me continue to improve the way that we look at it and the articulation. I feel like what
Hmm.
you did a really skillful job the other night of with us was, it's like when you feel something, you're not really sure what. Maybe it's a body sensation, maybe it's a feeling like frustrated, or something like very like like a generic negative experience.
Yeah, totally.
You really got, you cut down into the core like emotions with us.
Hmm.
So real
Wow.
quick, just because I think you do it probably more skillful and maybe almost more effortlessly than I do. I would love to have you exemplify what like doing a core emotion wheel with me.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So what I typically tell people, and add whatever flavor you would to the explanation of this. So it's meant to be a simple short tool that I think is really hard at first, and
Hmm.
then once you get the reps in, it's much easier. But it's meant to be like a short 2 minute per person thing that you can do with your partner to build connection with them. And the goal is just to name all 8 core emotions to help you kind of hear and see each other's experience. What else
Yeah.
would you add to explanation for someone hearing this for the first time?
Yeah, so I think of the core emotion wheel simply as what you said, it's an exercise. So, like, I don't go to the gym to get better at being at the gym. I go to the gym so that I'm strong for life with my kids, with my wife, etc. So, what it does is when you identify an emotion and you give 1 to 3 sentences about the last time you felt that, it actually fires in your brain. So the next time that you feel it, you go, "Oh, that was shame. Oh, okay. I know what that feels like." And so you're just exercising that muscle of recognition because the goal isn't to do the wheel. The goal is that anytime, every time, all the time you feel those emotions, you communicate them and regulate, because I think we have emotions all day long. They're just firing, they're happening to you. There's nothing you can do about it. It's just chemical in your brain and they stack up. So if you don't flush them out, you have at some point a dysregulation because they've stacked up. So, a bunch of tiny little weights on a scale will eventually tip the scale. And what I noticed in my life is that one little moment would trigger a huge response because I hadn't flushed out or regulated all of those little tiny moments throughout the day. So that's all I would say is, and it is, yes, one, it's a really good tool to use with your partner, but what I've found to be really beneficial is it as a tool to connect with myself. That was actually the
Mhm.
biggest thing that I learned through this is like me knowing what's going on for me, what's happening for me, and processing that allows me to hold space for the other, whether that's my kids, my wife, my friends, or even my clients, or just someone on the street. Me knowing and processing what's happening for me lets me hold space for others. Because when I was flooded, I couldn't hold space for other people's emotions. I was just overwhelmed by it. So that's the only thing I would add is like, it's a great tool, yes, to connect. It does facilitate great connection, but
Yep.
especially with yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the gym metaphor too, of like you don't go to the gym to be strong at the gym. You go to the gym to be strong at home. And almost like, I feel like almost like if you go to the gym specifically for like the stair workout, one of those stair workout machines, the Stairmaster, you don't do the Stairmaster so that you can be good at the Stairmaster. You do that so that you're not out of breath when you do the stairs at home or at work.
100%.
Which the parallel is like you do the work in this exercise so that when, this morning, Alyssa and I were both flooded for a little bit.
Hmm.
I was late in the morning routine. I screwed up our coffee machine. Whenever I don't put enough water in it, it like stutters, and then it
Yeah.
doesn't work for a little while. And she's like, "You can just use the mushroom coffee," which is abnormal, but like it requires different heat requirements. So she was feeling hurt that I took
Wow.
so long that I kept using the microwave because it was loud, and she felt like I was really abrupt in turning the white noise off this morning. I had none of those.
Wow.
I didn't see any of what I had done that morning. And for people listening, be like, that feels aggressive to feel hurt about the microwave.
Hmm.
That's not the important part. Was for her that she had the words to describe what she was experiencing, and so that she was able
100%.
to communicate that with me when I saw she was a little dysregulated and said, hey, what's happening for you, which I
That's
prefaced with
amazing, dude.
sharing her some of my own emotions about how that
Yeah.
morning was going already. I kicked off with guilt, shame, and I think fear around that I was
Wow.
slow getting started. So
That's amazing though,
that's
because
what,
that could have carried into the rest of the day, whether you think it's
yeah,
big or small. It could have.
yeah, yeah.
And
And,
so that's
and
so cool.
she unlocked something recently. I don't know if I have it around me. Is I have this mug of, for people who know Gary V. He has the V Friends people, the characters, and one of them is "You're Gonna Die Fly," which is, Gary talks about like being aware of your mortality to help
Hmm.
you be sort of motivated for like tomorrow's not promised. Like make the most of today. Like do the hard emotional things, and
Wow.
that character for me strikes like when I take a moment to think about the character on my mug that I use almost every day. It's like a fear, therefore fear will help propel me towards tough action, like the scary things, the juicy things. When Alyssa
Yeah.
sees it, she had a near death experience a couple of years ago. She recognized recently that that actually reminds her of that trauma, and for a long
Wow.
time she has not had, she's had like this body sensation of like a little gut feeling like I don't like that, but
Yeah.
hasn't had words for it for a long time. And she just
Wow.
recently connected with that. It fires that in her brain. So
Dang.
I think at some point she might retrain her brain that that doesn't fire for her. But for now it looks like I'm going to be hiding that mug. I don't know if I'm going to get rid of it yet, but probably going to be hiding it until that's no longer a pain point for her.
Yeah, I would and just say one. No, I know we're supposed to get to the wheel here, but it may or may not ever stop firing for her. So that's the thing is everyone's experience is different, just like you described. It that doesn't that fi- That's a positive thing for you. It's not for her. What we want her to do is just go, ooh, flooded with fear. And you're like, what's happening with fear? Oh, that mug just reminds me of that thing. And she's processed it in 10 seconds, whereas before it might have taken her a day,
Hmm.
right? And it's living in her body all day long. And that's the goal is just, it doesn't matter if it fires for you or not. It may forever. It may not, but it may. But if it takes you only 5 seconds to flush it out of your body, then it's not impacting you. It's not driving behavior. It's not driving disconnection. And that's why we do the wheel is because she can recognize it. Boom. And she tells you she's regulated and she's off with her day and it's not impacting her. So that's really cool.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna stop prefacing things. I'm gonna let you do the
Yes.
wheel.
Okay. Sure. I got it right here. Honestly, just yesterday, I experienced a whole bunch of sad and shame. I've been a fairly competitive CrossFit athlete for a decade or so, and we do this thing called the Open. This year, my training hasn't gone well just because we got 4 kids and just a lot going on. I've had some injuries. And we do this thing called the Open, where it's a global competition. And I did the workout yesterday, and it was a repeat from a few years ago. And I did way worse than I did 3 years ago. And I just laid on the floor like so much sad, so much shame. Oh my gosh, so much shame. Even some guilt in there that I hadn't maybe done the things that I wanted to do or thought I should do to prepare for it. Definitely in that moment was hit with some fear like, oh, is my fitness decreasing now? I'm in my 40s and like is this my reality now? Is like everything just going to be trending downwards and ooh, I think the fear there is that I do this because I want to be healthy for my kids and I want to live a long time for my kids and my wife. And I think there's a lot of fear there that this would be trending downwards. Even some like core level anger, I think that I hope drives me to figure out what's going on with my body and the pain that I'm in because I don't want to be that. I don't want it to trend downwards.
Hmm.
Um, Let's see. I think I even had, there was definitely some lonely in that because I've been experiencing some lonely at the gym, which has generally been a place of community and hits harder than I thought it was going to.
Mm.
Place of community and joy. And lately it's been a place of like real loneliness because I haven't been able to do the things that the other people are doing. And I'm just, because of my
Mm.
injuries, that's sad as well. And then there was a little bit of hurt even in that moment because the people around me that saw that I was frustrated, they couldn't really hold space for that because they're like, oh, you're fit, you've had injuries, you're fine, and they were really like trying to make me feel better, but it felt a little bit like disregard, like for my experience, just felt like they couldn't really see me and how really frustrated I was. But I actually did have a lot of joy later last night. My wife, she just came up to me and she was like, "Hey, I just want you to know how proud I am of you. Like, I know you didn't want to do this competition because you knew that it was probably going to be a shame experience, but you did it anyways. And I just see you." And she just really gave me a lot of identity and saw me last night and was like, "I saw how hard that was for you." And she didn't try to like appease me, like, "I know you'll do better in the future." She just was like held space for that. That was painful. And she's like, I could see that it was painful. And like, she's like, "I feel sad about that for you." And that actually brought me a lot of joy because she saw me and I was like, dang, wow. Yeah, so I think that's all of them. That was
So
the whole
first, I'm gonna call out for anyone listening. So that was 3 minutes 9 seconds. What
oh,
he just did was he
guilt.
went through eight core motions.
Supposed to be 2 minutes.
Yeah, eight core motions, and he shared them. Now you do it. I do it much more mechanically. I kind of like look at the wheel and I go through the wheel. What I want you guys to do in a second is as I'm gonna go through the wheel, I want you to hear the difference, and I'm gonna call out a couple things just because some of the words that I know you just said there, people are hearing probably for the first time in either ever
Yeah,
or a long
sure.
time. A man talking about his shame, a man talking about sadness or hurt or loneliness or get like a lot of those things. So, and then there's a couple other things, so I won't ruin the surprise here. I'm gonna watch my stopwatch here so that I don't have a
Okay.
shame
Okay.
experience in passing 2 minutes. Let's see. For me, joy, as I know as we were recording this, that Alyssa sent me a picture, which is likely of her gold nose ring, which she literally just walked in. I know she's been wanting for years.
Oh, wow.
Anger, I think anger at myself this morning for we have an agreement that I'll come in at 6:30, bring her coffee, and I screwed up multiple things that I didn't get in there for another 20 minutes. Shame, there are definitely moments. So made a video this morning talking about singing the song Linkin Park's Numb, which all the millennials listening will know, and I found myself kind of ugly crying and
Mm,
like even as I use the word ugly, right? I'm feeling shame in like the experience of hearing myself cry and attempt to sing a song at the same time. Guilt that, as we were talking about that mug, that I don't want to immediately get rid of it because it brings me a lot of joy, and I think it brings me
yeah.
like what feels like healthy fear that it could be a loss of identity for me by putting the mug away and having it sit in a box for either multiple years or forever or
Yeah.
end up going somewhere else.
Yeah.
Lonely, I think lonely this morning when I was crying to the song, in that it was like hard there, it was seemingly no one to share about it with, so I broke out my camera and said, okay, I'll share this with the internet in the next hour.
Yeah.
Sad that so many people are feeling so much of that numbness and pain and having no tools and or no environment where they feel comfortable sharing it.
Yeah.
Hurt when Alyssa says, are you gonna say anything at the end
Mm,
of her like sharing a bunch of emotions, and I'm like stuck in paralysis of like not being sure what to say sometimes, and feeling hurt when that's her like next response. Joy being on here with you,
oh,
and
me too.
joy when I get to see Alyssa's nose ring, and joy from posting that video this morning. I wish I could have caught myself crying on camera, but the snot and the tears were still fresh when I made it. So that was 2 minutes
Wow.
49 seconds. I just went
Thank
through
you for
anger,
sharing.
shame, guilt, fear, loneliness, sadness, hurt, joy. One thing I want listeners to notice, I feel consistently uncomfortable, but I know Dr. Hill, the founder of Connection Codes, says that the data is really clear. You may have noticed Elijah's significantly more vocal in the audible responses as we're going through those. And when I first heard you doing that, I was uncomfortable. I still have some discomfort around like
Sure.
the level of audio that you kind of offer when listening. And at the same time, I've also found, as you've done it, as Alyssa and I have been working on being more audible, we really do feel consistently more heard. And I'm curious, when you're working with a couple and they are audible and they're like, oh yeah, got it, hear that, like they're being very audible, and the other person is still saying, I still don't feel heard.
Hmm.
How do you approach that conversation? Because I've noticed that that happens with us. Part of it is I do get really quiet and I have a hard time, as they call it, oohing each other, making
Yeah,
those
right.
those sounds. And at the same time, I know that there are. I was talking with one of my clients the other day. He said, I do all those things, and she's still like, I don't feel heard at the end. I'm curious, how do you approach
Interesting.
that with folks?
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, I haven't experienced a lot of that in my
Hmm.
practice. When there's a genuine curiosity about the other, that curiosity is usually felt by the other. One thing that I have noticed is that when one party is not feeling heard, it's generally because they aren't actually sharing the core emotion. They've kind
Hmm.
of hit these peripheral emotions. And so then the question I will prompt the other to ask is, why don't you ask them if there's anything else or what else is happening? And a lot of times they'll start with something like maybe fear or anger, but really it's more like hurt. And so when they actually get to the emotion that came first, it's not that the other emotions aren't happening, it's just they weren't first. The first emotion that fires in your brain is usually what we call the core emotion. When you get people to the core emotion and someone can ooh them or hear them and actually be curious about that and not understand their experience because they can't really understand it, but they can understand the emotion. Once that happens, I have yet to see someone say they haven't felt heard.
Hmm.
Because if you get to the core and you express the core and somebody regards that, like holds space for it, steps into it with you, they always feel connected. They always feel heard. So it may just be that they're not quite to the core emotion yet, or maybe they're not really oohing. I don't want to say in the right way, but they're maybe they're placating or they're just like going through the motions. But we have found even in some of the research that that initial kind of going through the motions is way better than what we call the still face, which is silence or
Yeah.
no expression on the face.
Yeah. Now, in the journey that you've gone through, I know I'm still very early, and I feel like there's a lot of moments like this morning where I knew she was feeling some things. I think I started off with, I'm feeling guilt, I'm feeling um, fear, which I feel like those two, when shared with someone, it's like they're very like things that we're acknowledging, almost like a misstep. It almost, I feel like when I share shame or guilt or fear, it's like those are the easier ones to share because I'm not typically too afraid of what their reception might be. I am,
Okay.
however, often afraid if I'm going to say, I felt hurt when you did this, I'm afraid that the other person is going to be like, I didn't mean to hear you, or like a much more
Yeah.
anticipating they'll feel hurt back or that they might get defensive. So
Mm,
this morning I said, I shared guilt and fear, and then I was like, I'm feeling some other things right now, and like I would actually rather have you share. And she's like, nope, that doesn't work. I don't like that. And so I was like, damn it, I really didn't want to share the lonely or sad or hurt because I'm afraid that she's not gonna, that she, she just woke up and she might not be ready
yeah,
to hear those things too. So
sure.
I think there's a lot of moments where, especially earlier on in our journey right now, 10 years into marriage, but early in this like naming a lot of emotions journey, like I think there's a lot of moments where almost both of us don't quite feel super safe to share, and we'll both be quiet, but we're kind of sitting there and there's no opportunity, there's no coach in front of us, it's just the two of
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
Have you worked with people to improve the ability and or speed to get to that curious space where, because I think I get why she probably didn't feel, she said like, yeah, I didn't feel heard when you were listening to me.
Mm,
which it could have been that she was not hitting the core motion, but I also do think like I was lacking in curiosity. I was like,
wow.
like there's a part of me that was like, let's get over this with. Let's get this over with. Is like I know we're both feeling stuff.
Yeah.
I gotta go through this again.
Yeah, yeah.
So there was definitely some lack of curiosity. Do you have any recommendations for me almost in that moment of like how do I get myself into a curious place?
Yeah, so real quick for context, did you notice something was happening for her?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is where I encourage when you notice something is happening for your partner or even for yourself, it's that as soon as you notice it, that's a key to tune into your own curiosity. It's a key to go, okay, I'm missing something here. There's something happening for my partner, there's something happening for me. And then you ask. And sometimes I'll even ask, hey, I'll say it like this, hey, babe, some fear in asking, but I also have a lot of fear in disconnecting this morning. And I really have a lot of joy
Mm,
about being connected to you. I'm just curious, is there something happening for you? Am I missing something? Like, fill me in. What am I missing? And so that rather than, yes, sometimes I will start with what's happening for me, but when I notice that my wife, there's something off, and you can feel it. I mean, you felt it this morning. It's
for
very
sure. Yeah.
apparent when there's even a slight disconnection. And I just ask, and I preface it with the emotion that's firing for me, which is usually fear of disconnection, fear.
Mm,
Probably for me, the biggest fear is that it's something that I did, that
yeah.
I hurt her in some way, but I want to know that. And so what you're
Yeah.
doing when you're asking is you're communicating, "Hey, I am curious about you. I desire to be deeply connected to you. I desire to know what's happening." And you're also saying, "I don't know." Because a lot of times, I mean, for me, I'll just speak for me as a man, I fill in the blanks in my head when there's something off,
Yeah.
and that was typically what would happen is I would fill in the blanks. I'd replay all the moments leading up to that moment, and usually I'm filling in the story with she must be mad at me. And I would say 90% of the time, maybe 95, it has nothing to do with me. And so when I get curious and I find out, usually I'm like, whoa, I had no idea that was happening. So I start by asking what's happening for her, and then hopefully I can get to, yeah, I just had a lot of fear that you were upset at me, etc. I had a lot of guilt that I didn't bring you the coffee this morning, etc. So it starts with curiosity. So I think that's the big thing is I try to get the couples to start with being curious, really, really, really curious all the time about what's happening for your
Mm.
partner and asking.
The interesting thing you said there, which you might have actually answered my question not the way that you had anticipated, but it sounds like even that it sounded like almost a micro regulation of like I'm feeling fear of disconnection, um,
Yes,
and or like I have joy when we're connected. I'm feeling fear of that. It's like that really really quick acknowledgement of dysregulation around even asking. I wonder if that could have been the key to unlock curiosity for me in that moment,
wow,
because
totally.
that moment of me saying like, all right, we're both dysregulated. Fuck. What do I do now? I got to do the thing. I got to ask her what's happening for her. But that tone that I even just put on there to like to act it out, that right there is probably fear and fear of continuing the dysregulation, sadness that we seem to be both dysregulated. I think even by
Absolutely.
saying I'm feeling sad that I feel like I might have caused something for you, feeling fear that this could lead to further disconnection, like that probably would have been yeah. So I feel like the larger answer is like when we're getting disconnected, the solution is regulate thyself,
Yes.
and then find a, and you'll likely when effective probably find yourself in a space of curiosity. Now I'm also feeling some guilt and some shame that I know a lot of people listening are probably not in a place right now where they have like they're able to name all these emotions. So some of these tools
Sure.
like
Yeah.
unlock at level 7, we're talking about level 7 right now. I think a lot of people are
Yeah.
on 1 or
Right.
2 maybe. Not saying that I'm above people, just like I know that this practice has been totally different. When you were first implementing it, when you take on like a coaching client and they've seen the wheel, they've done it with you, and you're a couple, maybe this doesn't happen with you, but do you ever have clients where after a couple sessions you'd be like, hey, so how's the wheel going? Like, have you been doing it on a consistent basis? Like, yeah, we did like half one on Wednesday, and that's it. Like, we do it barely once a week. Have you dealt with that? And or like, what's the coaching there? Because I think there's a
Yeah,
lot
for
of
sure.
people that I talk with that like that's kind of what I prescribe them as homework, and they've really struggled to do it.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I give all of my clients, if they can see this little card that it also says on the back the message of emotions and what the need is. Because if we look at emotions as not good or bad, they're not positive or negative. They're just sending you a message. They're just saying you have a need. Okay. And so I do encourage my couples to do the wheel as often as possible, but together, but I encourage them to do it on their own with themselves regularly. And I find that that is a really big, if they can get into the practice of that, let's like one of the things we say is brush your teeth, do the wheel. It's like I put the card wherever you need to. We have them plastered all over our house. For a long time I had one taped over the toilet so that just when I went to the bathroom it's like, oh yeah, okay, tune into myself. What's happening for me? And so you just have to find the rhythms and the routines and the structure that will help you to do it. So in session, if I do come to them and they're like, oh yeah, we only did it once this week, I'm like, okay, so what can we do this week to help facilitate reminding you to do the wheel? Because it literally takes 2 minutes, right? And so if they can start doing it with themselves on a regular basis, they're more tuned into themselves, and then it's a lot easier to do it with the other, with their partner, whatever, or whoever it is, friend, kid, whatever. So that's kind of what I do is like let's build some habits here. Because it's like going to the gym. I mean, the first time you go to the gym, you're not going to be really good at it and you're going to be freaking sore and it's going to suck. But you have to build the habit. The more you go, the easier it gets and it just becomes part of who you are. It's kind of a little bit of a new language, and you don't learn a new language one time. You
Yeah.
have to keep practicing it. So
You
that's
know,
the encouragement I give.
the other question I was going to ask, which I think you might have. I'm going to see if I got the answer out of it. One of the challenges I've had with my community is I've done a handful of like monthly challenges. I'm consistently telling them, do the wheel. If you do nothing else, just keep doing the wheel. And I get depressed reading through
Mm.
all the wheels because I feel connected with them, and at the same time like it just sounds like they all have terrible lives because all I'm
Oh,
hearing are the really tough emotions.
sure.
And so, as you were sharing, you don't give them just the wheel of the motions, you give them what the associated needs are typically with those each. So, I'm wondering almost if I were to 'cause I think so many of us, when we see and hear all those shame, guilt, fear, lonely, sad, hurt, anger, joy, there's that common question of like, why are they all negative?
Yeah,
And
right.
when we read them, when we receive them, when I go to open my notifications to like check in on my guys in the community, I see I got motion wheels to check out. Sometimes like it's tough for me to, it's a lot of emotional labor to like be a space for people to share that.
Sure.
And I'm wondering if I were to adjust some of the assignment almost to what, like choose for three of them or choose for one of them, what was the need underneath that?
Yeah.
Maybe it was just to speak what it was, or maybe it was, in that moment was to, I don't, for me, I recognized as I was doing some of mine with Alyssa, it was like, I think I coached myself. I was like, I think that was all I needed. I just needed to share it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm wondering if also sharing the need and whether it was fulfilled, almost like saying, okay, the next part of the assignment is do the wheel, but share what the need was for one of them, and did you fulfill that need? Like if it was lonely and the need is to connect, did you go connect with someone, or like was posting it here, was that the connection that you
Yeah.
needed?
Was that enough? Yeah,
I'm
totally.
wondering if that would almost help me solve the problem of being in just pain reading through all these really challenging emotions with these guys.
Yeah, well, I'm really curious what is happening for you as you read through them because you're experiencing something, right, that is making it hard for you to regulate and hold space for them. And I think that's where I really encourage so I do have a lot of just male clients where they maybe have a partner, but they come to me first because usually their wife is like, there's something going on here. We got to fix this. Go see Elijah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and so that's my encouragement is to find out what's happening for you in that. Okay, so I don't want to guess, but it may be a fear response that, hey, they're going to think this isn't working, they're going to stop doing it, or you
Mm,
might even get flooded with sad, like these guys are going through a lot, right? And so, yes, I do agree, like understanding the need that the core emotion is sending is very, very important. Like I had a shame experience at the gym, right? And a sad experience. For me, the need was to acknowledge, for the sad, was to acknowledge that something was missing or broken. Because that's what sad is telling me. The message of sad is something is missing or broken. Okay, so that's the sad. I needed to acknowledge like, hey, I'm been not as fit. I've been kind of broken. I need to acknowledge that. And all the need was there was just to process it. I just needed to say it. I needed my wife to hold space for it and regard that, hey, that's a sad experience for you. But also I got totally flooded with shame. Now, most of us feel like shame is a negative emotion, but if you process shame, it can be a really big driver to being a better you. Because that's all it's saying is you didn't operate or behave in a way that was your highest and best. So I can take that and I can let it send me down this hole of self-deprecation or self-pity, or I can go, nope, okay, that was a shame experience. Yeah, I haven't done the things in the last few months that would yield a better result. Okay, so now I can process that shame and go, I need to be better. I want to be better. And then implement the things that I need to do to be better. So, like, there's no negative emotion, it's just the unprocessed ones that drive negative behavior. So, the need and the message are very important. It's like understanding what the emotion is telling you. It's not just there, it's telling you something, it's guiding you, it's helping to protect you, like fear. Like fear is not a bad thing. It's protecting you. It's saying danger, beware of harm. Now, I have fear of public speaking. I can let that fear keep me from doing whatever and progressing in my speaking career, or I can go, you know what? The danger is I'm going to experience shame. I'm going to look like a fool. Okay.
mm.
So I need to prepare my ass off. I need to make sure that I am the best version of me on that stage. So understanding the message and the need is very important. But I would be curious what's happening for you when you're reading through those perceived negative emotions that's causing kind of a flooding for you.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much nailed it earlier, which is that I think I feel feared that like them being in my sphere, like paying for the community is not working, and that they're not getting anything out of it, and or like
Mm,
they're suffering, and that by sharing those things that it's not improving anything.
yeah,
Especially
totally.
like if I see someone's posted some very similar things on a consistent basis, like if they share the same hurt
Yeah,
day in day out.
totally.
There's a phrase that we hear often that I think you might have just myth busted as you're speaking. We have nothing to fear but fear itself. It almost sounds like it might actually be it's not fear itself, it's fear of a shame response, is probably it.
You get me going down the road of fear. Like, I have had so many clients, especially in the last few months, that have expressed high levels of fear. The goal of all this is to regulate your nervous system so that we make decisions not from our amygdala, our limbic system, from our emotional brain, but from our prefrontal cortex, from logic and reason. Like, that's the goal. Regulate the nervous system so we can do the things we know to do. And what I noticed is when they expressed the fear, they didn't regulate. I could see it in their body. So then I just asked, okay, so can you tell me more about the fear? What is the fear of? And as we would dive into each situation, for a lot of them, it was, well, for one couple in particular, her fear was actually of experiencing the hurt that she had experienced in their past
Mm,
relationship before using the tools. And once she got to the fear of hurt, she regulated. And I had another guy, he had fear of these two situations. So I just said, okay, so what's the fear over here? And he boom, 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 like started, oh, fear of shame, fear of loneliness, fear of this, fear of that, and then over here. And once he got to what the fear was of, because like the fear of the unknown, right? That's a really big one. Okay, but what is the unknown? What would you experience in the unknown? And usually the fear is of that. Like it's fear of disconnection. So fear of people moving away from you, fear of shame, fear of experiencing. I mean, there's even been fear of experiencing too much joy, which is wild. But I've had people express that like when I get flooded with joy, I make poor decisions. So it's like, so there's, it's fear is always, I think, maybe not always, and maybe Glenn would disagree with me. I think fear is usually fear of experiencing something else,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
fear of harm is also a thing, but like what would happen in the harm?
Now, similarly, almost like a myth bust here. So I'm curious what your take is on this. When I think about anger, I don't know how often I feel core level anger because I know they talk about it as a primary and a
Hmm.
secondary emotion. What I often offer to people that I'm coaching is me personally, I've yet to find a time where I've felt anger that there hasn't been something underneath it. So
Absolutely.
in my opinion, I don't think anger is a core level emotion. I'm not gonna fight people on it, and I'm just gonna say, me personally, I've yet to look under and like pick up a rock and look under it. I've yet to not find something under anger, and I'm curious, like when people bring up anger similarly, because I think that's like I think most men that I work with, especially, like anger is the one that we're best practiced at. The cultural systems that we're in, like, yeah, you can punch walls, but you're not allowed to cry. You can get angry about the football game, but you're definitely not allowed to say that you're lonely when your friends don't text you back.
Yeah.
I feel like anger has been one of the men in our society, I think we're all taught that anger is okay. That's about it. You're not allowed to feel fear,
Yeah.
not allowed to fear any of that. Would you say that that is like the top one that you're seeing a lot of the men that you work with? Like that's the one that they're decent at for the most part, and a lot of the other ones like are much more challenging.
I actually I found equal in my men and women, which is very interesting. But I do find that when people like yourself have a hard time recognizing core level anger, which is totally different, and core level anger expressed and processed can be very connecting. Secondary anger, which is what you're talking about, which is what most of us experience, means that it happens after another emotion. I'll tell you a little story. So I suffer with a fair amount of neurodivergence, which expresses itself in like some OCD tendencies, which means our house is very clean. And my kids have chores that they're supposed to do on a weekly basis. And my oldest teenager, she's 17, it's in the morning. I come into and I'm like, hey, did you clean the bathroom? And she's like, no, I had all these things, blah, 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 all this stuff, right? And I am not a very angry person. I'm just not. I don't yell. I don't punch walls. That's just kind of, I'm just a lot more mellow of a person. But what came out of me was, what the? Every single week, there's something that comes up. And my wife just looks at me and she's like, what's happening for you? And I was like, well, it was hurt that every week I have to ask her a whole bunch of times. It was a lot of lonely. I feel a lot of lonely when it comes to my experience of our house because I know that nobody else experiences it the way I do, and sad that it wasn't going to get done. And then after I exploded in anger, secondary anger, I was flooded with shame and guilt.
Hmm.
So it is when you peak under anger, there's something else firing. And usually it's some level of what I would call disregard. So that kind of loss of value from other people around you, where you're getting these messages of you don't matter, what's happening for you doesn't matter, you don't have value. And enough of those stack up that usually and this is where I think men, because they've had such a hard time recognizing the other emotions and processing, it looks like they're really good at expressing anger, but really all it is they're really bad at identifying and expressing the other things that are happening. Because somewhere in their life, they're getting these constant messages of, you don't have value, you don't matter to me, you're not important, you don't exist. And you get enough of those. And the truth is we have to let steam out. And unfortunately, it gets let out in anger for a lot of men because it's easy to tap into that aggression, that because we're kind of
Yeah.
wired that way. So yeah, there's always in secondary anger when it comes out in disconnecting behavior, like me yelling at my daughter, that's not core level anger because that was a disconnecting behavior. So when you find anger coming out in a behavior that's disconnecting, like you said, punching walls, yelling, whatever, that's not core level anger. There's something else happening. And so then you got to get curious about yourself.
So how do you know when it is core level anger?
So, core level anger is a driver to make change, a driver to accomplish. So, core level. So, for example, there's this friend of Connection Codes. He started a company called Charity Water, and he goes into Africa and he digs wells. That came from a core level anger about the injustice of people just not having clean water. So that was a driver to solve a problem, to fix a problem, to come up with solutions for something, or someone running a marathon. If you're running a marathon, you have to tap into core level anger to finish that. Like, no, I'm going to do this. Or studying for a final instead of going out and partying. There's a level of core level anger that's like, no, no, I'm going to accomplish this. I'm going to do this thing. I have to get this done. And that's core level anger. And that can be very connecting when communicated.
So to summarize the response in the last one, it's core level anger, almost when you can look back on it and see that there have been actions taken, and almost like there's almost, I know for sure there have been moments where I've felt so, honestly, the word that comes out for me is almost inspired, like inspired action, that I'm just like immediately in action. There's
Yeah.
no, almost no thinking about it. I'm just like sparked straight into action. And so it's almost like if there seems to be a reactionary aspect to the anger, that there's doesn't seem to be a whole lot of action going along with it, then it's much more likely to be secondary level anger.
Yeah, and I think you can look at the action as, is the action connecting or disconnecting? Like, I had a lot of
Mm,
core level anger in our marriage about us living in dysfunction. And it drove me to look inward, to go, what part am I playing in this
yeah.
marriage of disconnection? It didn't cause me to go, you need to change. It said, no, I need to fix something. There's something that's not working here that I need to fix. And that was core level anger. And when communicated to my wife, that was very connecting. But when I'm going, you need to fix something, and I'm telling her what to do, that's actually coming from a place of hurt and pain. It's not
Yeah.
coming from this place of core level anger. I don't know if that makes sense, but
Yeah.
that was kind of the best example for me in my marriage.
Yeah. Well, Elijah, I'm so glad that you came here today. I think I might have to re-listen back to this episode, but I'm imagining that there's a lot of listeners here today that are feeling refreshed in hearing
Hmm.
men speak. I'm going to say at least you speaking eloquently around emotional literacy, emotional fluency
Yeah.
in a way that, like, I don't know too many people in the world right now that can have a conversation like we just had that like exhibits that level of understanding around our own emotions. So,
It's amazing.
one, where can people find you, and or how would they go about working with you?
Yeah, probably the best way is my Instagram. It's just Elijah J. Runyan on Instagram. You can also go to my website. It's runyanstronghealth.com. But probably my Instagram's got all my links and all that stuff. So all
Yeah.
that's probably the best way.
And I think I don't I think it would require a little bit more permission from Alyssa to share more about
Mm.
the coaching call we had the other day. So I'll save that for another day. But we had a huge breakthrough in, at a minimum, regulating things around sex that we struggle with right now,
Love that.
which is like, it feels like it's laying foundational work for what's to come. So I'm looking forward to, we're probably going to be signing on to do some more of that work with you in the near future.
Awesome. Yeah.
But
Can I
Elijah,
share
thank you
one more
again
thing
for,
real quick?
yeah, go ahead.
I just want for your listeners, and this might help, is realizing that each person's experience is unique and that things are happening to people. And I think it gets really easy to downplay people's experience. And if you can just hold space for people's experience, quick story, like I said, I suffer with a little neurodivergence. So I was washing the dishes the other day. And while I was washing the dishes, because I end up doing all the dishes, that's just kind of because of my OCD, my wife was sitting at the bar and in the moment, I'm like, gosh, this is sad and lonely. Like she's not helping me with this, right? So I turn and I dry the dish. And when I turn around, my wife is standing there helping me. And what I thought would happen is that the pain experience would go away, but it actually didn't because my neurodivergence was like, now I'm not the one doing the dishes, and
Wow.
it puts the pain out differently for me when I do them. And what I realized in that moment is I was experiencing what seemed like really crazy, right? Like I'm like lonely because she's not helping me, but then I still had pain when she was helping me, which doesn't make sense. And what I realized is all I really needed her to do was see me. I needed her to acknowledge, like, I see that you're doing this. I'm thankful that you're doing this, and send me some sort of message that my experience is valid and that I really matter still to her, that I'm valuable to her. And so I think for your listeners, the best thing you can do is hold space for other people's experience and regard it and be like, "Ooh, that's a lot." Or I hear that and I still value you. I still think that you matter to me. So it can get very sticky when you start sharing emotions and our experiences because it's going to feel like an indictment on you. I mean, that was my biggest thing when she was hurt by me. I was like, that wasn't my intention. I didn't mean to.
Mm,
But unintentionally, I'm telling her, don't feel that way. And we want people just to feel however they're going to feel and be safe for them to communicate it. So if you can start with that, like if I would to say give one tool to walk away with is just hold space for your partner's experience.
perfect. What? That's your sound clip right there. That's the one that goes on Instagram that we're gonna cut from here.
Awesome.
This has been great. Thank you again,
Yeah, boy,
Elijah.
thanks for having me.
Yeah.